friends, welcome to another video. So friends, in this video we will be seeing what is the meaning of IP address and how does it work. So basically IP address is an internet protocol address and it is a numerical label such as 192.0.2.1 and it is connected to computer network that uses the internet protocol for communication. IP address allows the network devices to connect to one another and transfer data on local network or over the internet. So each IP address is a string of numbers separated by dots or periods. So generally there are 4 numbers in total and each number can range between 0 and 255. An example of an IP address would be 193.206.14.112. So currently we need billions of IP addresses to identify every computer, router and website on the internet. And going onwards, one day in future we will run out of unique addresses. So for this purpose, a new IPv6 protocol has been designed to meet this need. So what is the relation between IP address and domain names? So IP address space is managed globally by Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, which is INA, and there are other 5 regional internet registries which are responsible in their designation of the IP addresses to the local internet registries such as internet service providers, etc. Now, generally, as we know, humans are more comfortable with names than numbers. So basically, it is easier for us to remember a domain name, say for example google.com, than a long list of numbers like say 192.120.243.165, etc. So internet's domain name system, which is DNS, is like a phone book. So when you type a domain name like google.com, it automatically looks up the number, the IP address, and it will connect you to that particular website. So what is interesting is that our WordPress site or Google site doesn't know the IP address, it is just the URL. Now this will be making it easier to switch to new hosting provider where our website's URL is likely to change. So now we'll see what are dynamic and static IP addresses. So most of the internet users have the dynamic IP address that automatically changes from time to time. This is better for internet service providers so that the need to deal with customers joining and leaving the service and changing the address is easy. So most of the websites will have the static IP address and it won't change. Now this is important because the DNS system will be using our website's IP address when someone tries to navigate to our site or send us an email, something of that sort. So if we plan to host our own website, then we would need to purchase a static IP address from our internet service provider and we would need to pay for it. Now let us see what are IPv4 and IPv6 protocols. Now original internet protocol is IPv4. As we have seen, it defines an IP address as a 32-bit number like say for example 109.212.14.112. So basically this will allows only have around 4 billion IP addresses and those are not enough for ongoing use. So there is a new protocol which is known as IPv6 protocol and this was introduced around in 1990 and deployment was started in mid 2000 and it's currently also ongoing. So when we visit the what is myip.com, we can discover whether we have been assigned an IPv6 IP address or not. Now the new protocol uses 128-bit IP addresses that look something like the which is shown in the screen. Now this means that IPv6 is able to provide us about way more combinations than uh, those were possible in IPv4. Now this is more than enough to meet our growing need for IP addresses for websites, computers, smartphones, etc. for future years to come. Now let us see how IP address assignment is done. So IP addresses are assigned to a host either dynamically as they join the network or persistently by configuration of the host hardware or software. So persistent configuration is also known as using a static IP address. In contrast, when a computer's IP address is assigned, each time it restarts, this will be known as a dynamic IP address. Now, dynamic IP addresses are assigned by using Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, which is DHCP. And DHCP is the most frequently used technology for assigning addresses. Now, to avoid the administrative burden, assigning specific static addresses uh, is avoided using the DHCP protocol. So administrator won't need to assign the static IP address manually each time. Now this also allows devices to share the limited address space on a network. So if only some of them are online at a particular time. So typically dynamic IP configuration is done by default in modern desktop operating systems. So basically suppose we have multiple devices and not every device is being used at a time. So there is no point in allocating static IP address, right? So the configuration will be done for the dynamic host configuration protocol, and it will allow it will allot the IP address to the devices dynamically whenever they need to go to the internet. So DHCP is not the only technology used to assign IP addresses dynamically. So say Bootstrap protocol is a similar protocol and it is a predecessor of DHCP. There are some other mechanisms like dial-up is there, and some of the broadband networks also use the point-to-point protocol for dynamic address feature. Now computers and equipment which are used for the network infrastructure like routers, mail servers, these will need to have the constant IP address so that devices can connect to that IP address, and thus those are generally will be having the static addressing, because if each time their IP address changes, then the devices which want to connect to these computers or equipments will not be able to connect, right? Because they won't be able to know what is the recent IP address of that device. So those will have a static IP address. Now, in absence of feature or in absence of failure of static or dynamic address configuration, operating system may assign link local address to a host using a stateless address auto configuration. So this is one of the example. So IP addresses are divided in multiple classes. So there is a class A address, class B address, a class C address, a class D and class E addresses. So we will be seeing these types in further videos. So friend, this was a basic video related to IP addresses. So thank you so much for watching this video. And if you like this video, kindly subscribe to my channel because I will keep on preparing such videos which you can watch and share your feedback. Thank you.